And what happens if I press the mute?
Welcome back, listeners, or if you are new, welcome to the Digital Divide podcast. I am Justin Fry.
And I am Joshua Charletto.
This is episode 27, so let's cut to the chase. I mean, it's crystal clear. I mean, as good as it gets for plug and play. I don't know how much you messed around with it.
No, I just plugged it in.
Magic. Dang. Is it so? Now that microphone is the Blue Yeti, correct?
Yeah.
And it's a cardioid, or what is it? What type do you know?
It's well, I have it in cardioid mode.
Oh, you can alternate it.
Yeah, you can set it so that it's just the front that you have to address.
Yeah.
Or you can set it to do all directions, or you can set it just to do stereo, which would be both sides and the front.
Huh.
Or you can set it to do interview mode, where it's like one on either side.
That's so interesting. I feel like that's a good. That's just like a good microphone right off the bat. That it just you have the flexibility with it.
Yeah, it's really nice. So far, I didn't really do anything with it, and it sounds great.
Yeah, it does.
Though you can totally hear everything I'm typing.
Yeah.
That's the type of mic that I can't remember because I'm trying to do a Google search. Let's see.
I don't remember. There's cardioid and there's...
Yeah, well, it's not dynamic. It's the other one, which is cardioid.
I think, yeah. Cardioid. Because dynamic is the one... I thought that's the one the one... Oh, no, I don't recall.
Yeah, dynamic is the one where you have to dress it closely and within a certain direction.
Correct.
And if you don't get any sound at all, almost. Whereas the cardioids just pick up everything in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Which I was wondering if I'd have to get some kind of wall dressings.
Yeah.
In this room, but I have curtains on one side of the room, like almost across the entire wall, so it seems to be working out that way.
Yeah, it's not. You don't really hear too much of an echo that I could really tell. And you're going to have to play with it, because for the longest time, I was picking up all sorts of noises, and then I found out that I had to turn off my fan because it was just too loud, the moving of
Oh, yeah.
That was... it annoyed me because I could hear it, so...
Okay, live, what do you call it? Live feedback? Well, live follow-up. So live follow-up is that I can set it to cardioid mode, which means that I have to address it directly on, and it only takes sound from that position.
Yeah.
But it is a condenser mic.
There we go, condenser.
Yeah, condenser.
That's right.
Yeah.
Mic lessons with Josh and Justin.
I am proud of it. It's my first microphone ever, so I'm excited about that, and it sounds really good.
I'm proud and glad and happy for you, because that's awesome. I know you've been contemplating it for a very long time.
Yes. And, there's way better mics out there and better setups, I'm sure. But, I mean...
It's a plug into the USB. You don't have a...
Yeah. And if I get to that point, I'll get to that point. For now, this is amazing.
Yeah. I think... I mean, this setup right now I have it's $25, and it's totally worth it, and I'm happy with the fact that it was $25. But eventually, I think a newer mic would be nice, maybe a more or higher quality, something that I could plug headphones in for monitoring, or just having the ability to do what you just did, or can do, and switch it between the types, because that's pretty awesome.
It is awesome, and I can plug headphones directly into this as well, but I haven't. I plugged it into my computer, the microphone. I'm sorry. I plugged the headphones into my computer.
Yeah.
So that I could monitor, but also hear you, obviously, with the Skype setup.
Yeah, of course.
But I guess I could use like 2 sets of
headphones.
I don't know
if people do that. I really don't know how that... I mean, I just have my headset going to the computer. And obviously I don't have a plug-in, so I don't have monitoring on either, because what I do is I record like a couple segments before and just gauge where I'm supposed to be in the mic, so that I don't have to worry about it. Occasionally I'll turn on monitoring to hear myself, and like I'm doing that right now. It just sounds weird.
It's hard to get used to. But your $25 mic setup also included like a boom stand, right? Or no, a boom arm.
Yeah, it's a cheap boom arm.
Yeah, but that's all you need.
Yeah, I wish it was a little bit more sturdy, but it does the job. Like, it's a $25 worth completely.
No, I that's the next thing on my list now. So I have the mic, but I need to get an arm for it.
Yeah, it's
just because, I've got it on the desk. I'm leaning over a little bit to address it. But, I definitely want to get some kind of arm for my desk.
Yeah,
it's probably
nice.
A pop filter.
Cheap.
Just blew out there. So, yeah. I didn't grab a news article yet.
Mm-hmm.
But
did you want me to start so you can look and listen? Or do you want to wait? I'm down for either.
Yeah, you can fire it up.
All right.
What did you have on the docket for the old newsreel?
The newsreel. We talked about this in passing today, or was it yesterday? I don't remember what day it is. It all blends. But for those who PC game or have ever heard of Steam, this company that, long story short, has a gaming service that people buy games on the service and you can play it on the computer. Anyways, they had a device that they announced in 2015 that was called the Steam Link and allowed you to basically stream from your PC to your TV, so you could sit on the couch and play, I guess, World of Warcraft in this case, or other games from the comfort of your couch and a controller or keyboard and mouse. And it didn't do so hot, and so they started selling and stopped producing them, to the point where at one point I think it was like $2, almost $3 worth. You can buy the Steam Link, and I don't know if the controller came with it, but for $2 plus shipping.
There was a bunch of different bundles they did for a while. And yeah, they dropped it to $2.99, like $3.
That's crazy.
And then you could also do it where I was like $30 and you got the controller with it. I don't know. They've done a bunch of stuff with it.
That's interesting. Well, it's kind of sad that they got to that point, and now after all that's said and done, they stopped producing it and they're completely, quote, sold out. So I'm sure you can find them on eBay. Some jerk out there is trying to think he's going to scam somebody from buying this, but they're no longer available. And so what's happening is that Valve is working with some, I don't know if they're working with individuals or just working with the ability to use Raspberry Pi, which is like a tiny little computer for hobbyists, and developing this sort of software that is giving people using Raspberry Pis the ability to create the Steam Link with this $35 piece of hardware. So it's just interesting and kind of cool that they're opening it up to the open source world, and it's free minus the device, so unless you have a Raspberry Pi 3 already. So I think it's kind of cool, and I don't know if it's community driven, but I'm sure the community will somehow take hold of this and modify the OS or whatever it continues to run on the Raspberry Pi. It's just kind of cool to see something like that.
I didn't realize they discontinued the Steam Link. That's why people were doing that?
Yeah,
I had
completely.
no idea.
Yeah, completely discontinued, not even selling it in their store online. So you can't buy it.
I have one. I've told you that before, and I've used it rather, wirelessly for a while, and then got really frustrated with it because it's not great wirelessly.
Right.
And then a gentleman at work, Dave, if you're listening.
Hey, Dave.
Was yelling at me like, okay, why don't you get a really long Ethernet cable? I'm like, yeah, but then it's draped across the floor, and then, you got to worry about who's going to trip on it. I have 3 kids, blah, blah, blah. He's like, when do you play video games?
Yeah, exactly.
I said, like, when they're in bed.
Touche.
So you roll the cable out and you plug it in, and then when you're done, you roll the cable back.
God, Dave.
And I was like,
sense.
oh, wow, I don't know why I never thought of that. That's very silly of me, so...
Yeah, if I were to ever get one of these things, or would have had it before this happened, I would have definitely hardwired it. I have a friend who has it, and that was the first thing he told me was he tried wireless, and he had his computer in the basement, and then he would stream to his TV upstairs, or the main level, and it would work. I mean, it was a little grainy at first, but once it finally got a solid connection, it was great. But the problem is, you start getting people on their phones, and they're using the Wi-Fi, and it just bogs down, and you'll get screen tear. Then you'll also get like a distortion to the point where you can't play the game. But I really don't know how many people this appeals to, and clearly enough to have some sort of community putting together this software to run on the Raspberry Pi. So
well, it's because there are games that you want to play on the couch.
Yeah, I guess.
And so the not so cheap way is to build a computer, like a full-fledged computer to play games.
Yeah.
I actually have a buddy who has 2 computers, one in his living room for playing on the couch and the other in his office.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the alternative. And I will say, when it is hardwired, it actually is really good. And even with lots of different clients on my network, it actually, like phones and computers and things running at the same time, like my wife will be streaming on Netflix at the same time, and it's no problem at all. It's just, you would never want to use it for like multiplayer games.
Oh,
like,
gosh, no.
That'd be the worst idea. So.
Yeah, I think it would just because of the lag and latency between your reactions, and you would be dead before you would even know it. So,
but for the single player games, it works pretty well.
Yeah,
there are those times where it's a little jumpy, but it's pretty stable after that. So
yeah, have you ever tried the Steam, like the actual streaming service through Steam? Having a PC open and playing the game, and then you can actually stream it on another device from that. That works really well.
It does.
If it's
actually, I recently, what was that, a couple days ago? Monday? I'm not sure. Recently used PlayStation's version of that, and I was playing my PlayStation 4 on my MacBook Pro.
Hold on, wait, so what now?
Yeah, it was pretty great.
That sounds
I was playing
amazing.
Dark Souls 2 on my MacBook Pro. And again, you don't want to use it for multiplayer at all, of course. But it was really stable, and it looked pretty good.
Backwards. That's almost backwards. Like, I would rather do the other way around.
Well, yeah, and so like that's what I use the Steam Link for. Like, okay, well, I want to sit on the couch, and then I sit down on the couch and play on my PC, you know, on the big TV.
Yeah.
But sometimes, M likes to watch shows, and I want to do something else, so I'll take it in and either play on my PC, but now I can also play my PlayStation, which is hooked up to the TV, while actually not sitting at the TV. So it's pretty great.
Wow. Things I would have never thought of.
Exactly.
But yeah, that's all about Steam Link. So there's links in the show notes, and you can go buy a Raspberry Pi 3 B Plus for about $35. I guess Micro Center has it on sale when this article went out for $30. I mean, you can get the Raspberry Pi 3 for this, or you can use it for other things. It's a hobbyist PC, or hobbyist. What would you call this? There's a word for it. Hobbyist
pretty good.
Computing. Yeah, so you could turn it into anything. So if you end up getting bored with using the Steam Link, you could turn it into pretty much anything you think of. So yeah, go out and take a look at that. What you got? Oh, you got Reddit. Something from Reddit. This is going to be good.
So it's, of course, about games. We should just make a gaming podcast, for goodness sake.
Yeah, at this point, it's getting to the point where that's all we talk about.
Really? Seriously. We had talked about Fallout 76 last week, the new Fallout game, and all of its problems. And then, they had lots of backlash, and they shipped out did we talk about the bag issue?
We slightly addressed it. I think I mentioned I said two or three things about it, but we didn't really address any of that.
But you saw that, right?
For sure.
Yeah, people paying $200 for a whole special edition set with a bag, and it was supposed to be a canvas bag.
A really cool canvas bag.
Yeah, to hold the helmet that you got with it. But they get this bag, and it's apparently this the kid toy doctor bag, really thin material. Oh, so people were very upset. I mean, I would be too if I spent $200 on something. But apparently they're now, this is actually all unrelated to the article that I have. Apparently now they're actually producing the canvas bags and shipping them out to people, the people who bought them. Just because it's been such a big problem. So
Bethesda.
Anyway, but the thing I actually want to talk about, apparently there's been a patch to Fallout 76 that came out. And
just
I think
the other day?
Just today.
Oh, wow.
And they released it, but they didn't tell anybody about it, and they don't have any, or up until now, they didn't have any patch notes. So nobody knew what it changed, and apparently a whole bunch of stuff changed, including how the game plays and how you can do certain various things in the game. And it wasn't documented at all. So they're like pushing undocumented changes to this game. That's how bad of a situation it is right now.
Wow. You would have thought they would have learned.
This was posted like 7 hours ago, and I'll actually just include the Reddit link, and you can read all about it if you want to. But this was posted 7 hours ago, and now there's been an edit by this point where they've posted a bunch of the changes for the patch on their website. But still, apparently it's still not the full set of changes. It's most of the changes or some of the changes. I don't even know, but it's just interesting. It doesn't bode well for the game or the company when you have changes coming out that are undocumented to the general public or to release games or live games, as they say.
Right.
So it's that's pretty interesting.
I mean, it's already a high level topic or how about an issue, and
yeah, very high visibility too.
So I don't get why you would avoid, or you would do something like this and like not expect somebody to notice it or at least call it out. Especially
it's too
Reddit.
Bad. It's really too bad because they botched it so bad that I think it's going to take a really good game. Either it's going to take them working really hard on this game to make it amazing in the next 6 months, or it's going to take the next game to be incredible, because otherwise they're going to have bad PR for a while.
Yeah. Unfortunately, for a very long time, I think.
Yeah, right.
Well, let's try and move to a better and more positive topic, but for follow-up, something that I had is with regards to what we talked about last week, and it's about I guess the confusion and what I think a lot of people are calling like a pricing disaster that Apple has going on right now. And what's funny is that you sent me the link to this video the day after I had watched it and had the exact same response. So I don't know why I didn't think, hey, Josh probably would think this is interesting, but the link in the follow-up, you'll take a look at it when you can. But Snazzy Labs YouTuber basically broke down currently the laptop lineup for Apple, including the new MacBook Air, the current MacBook, and then the MacBook Pro. And I think it was the low-end MacBook Pro he was working specifically looking at. And he went through all these tests, comparing them to each other, like rating them, winning the laptops would gain points if they did something better or faster in some tests that he had running. But at the end, like, it really didn't matter because the MacBook Pro was clearly a better performing product. And then he slapped the prices on, and the price difference between the MacBook Air, the MacBook, and the MacBook Pro was disgusting. It was like $100 between the MacBook Air right now and the MacBook Pro. So the MacBook and MacBook Pro, I think, like the baseline MacBook Pro is $12.99, I believe, and then the MacBook is still $12.99 as well. So it just makes me furious because, granted, we're techies and we're going to look at something like that and we'll be doing our research, but why would you not spend the extra $100 to get a far better and more powerful machine than the two machines that are below it? It kind of like dilutes the whole ecosystem of getting like, what MacBook am I going to get?
Yeah, it's really strange.
Yes.
I think it's just because the new Air just came out, so my hope would be that they'll have updates for the regular MacBook and the MacBook Pro coming soon. But, I mean, I don't know what you would do. You know, even if you had a better MacBook Pro, would you change the price? I'm not sure that I would. I'm not sure I would increase the price at this point. They're increasing prices everywhere. It seems like we talked about that before.
Right.
It's a weird dichotomy they have between their laptop products right now. And I'm not sure how you resolve it. You either have to kill one or two of the products off. And that's kind of where we were before. Before the Air came out, we had the MacBook at $1299 and the MacBook Pro at $1299. And so that's where I was at when I went to buy my MacBook Pro. I was looking at them and I'm like, why, if I'm getting a general computing device, not a secondary computer, why would I choose the MacBook over the MacBook Pro?
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. They start at the same price.
Yep.
And it's very strange. So, yeah. It's a great video, though.
Yeah, and he does a really good job. What I like about it is that a lot of people can be Apple fans, and a lot of Apple fans are extremely critical of Apple, but for some reason he always he just says the things that people are thinking about. I like his way of approaching things and calling things out on Apple, but also with other companies. But he does a lot of videos on Apple products, and there's actually a really good video that I shared a very similar experience that he had with the Apple Store, and I'm sure a lot of people have, but with his iMac Pro. But yeah, it's an interesting video and kind of eye-opening, and just kind of points to the frustration I think a lot of people might have when they're going into an Apple Store to buy a laptop, if people still do that, and trying to pick one out. So yeah,
pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I forgot who I saw it. I saw it on Twitter though, and yeah, it was pretty funny. So I was like, "What is this?"
Yeah,
I didn't even realize.
Right. I think it was right around the time too. Oh shoot! Did Microsoft? Somebody announced another new laptop too, and I don't remember who it was. Oh well, around the same time Apple, or shortly after Apple did. So I don't remember. Anyways. No follow-up for you?
No, I'm pretty good. I think I have everything said from last week and everything, so.
Cool. So I guess we're going to join into our gaming podcast now.
That's right. Today we're embracing it, right? We're just embracing what we know and love.
Right. And talking about, I guess, what I would call the state of console gaming, if it's still there, which I'm not saying it is, I'm not saying it's not. I don't want to give away my opinions right away, but I think, what would you say? Within the last couple of years, there has been some trends, I would say, with console gaming. And I kind of want to start at the very beginning with the introduction of what I would call the modern console gaming, like PS1 and PS2, like PlayStation 1 and the Xbox, the original Xbox, and like I think it was like Sega Dreamcast.
Yes.
And I don't know, Nintendo, I guess 64 would be the equivalent ish. That's totally a bad representation, but anyways.
Well, yeah, and so that's technically, I'm putting that in quotes. Did you hear the quotes?
Yeah, I heard
my new microphone.
I heard the swishing.
That's technically the 5th generation of consoles in the U.S.
Really?
Yeah.
Holy cow! Yeah. Because the pre-Ataris and the Sega.
Yeah, I mean they go way back, Super way before
Nintendos.
Me. And what's funny is that inside of that generation of consoles, they had, you named a few: the PlayStation, the Sega Saturn, the Nintendo 64, but they also include the 3DO, the Sega 32X. I forgot they released that. That was the re-release of the Sega game system. The Atari Jaguar.
What?
And then some other things that I've never heard of, including the Apple Pippin.
Yeah, everyone talks about, all the hardcore Apple fans, I think, are really the only people that care. I didn't even know
about this. I forgot about that.
You're not hardcore.
No, I'm not hardcore enough. That's clear.
That's such a terrible name.
That's a whole, I mean, in the Virtual Boy, do you remember that thing?
Yes.
Oh my God.
I do.
That's in there too. So that's that whole section from 1993 into 1996.
Wow. That's impressive.
Yeah.
Like thinking of just the games at that time too, and how complex they were, and how, I guess I wouldn't say complex, but they were pretty deep. They were not just your play 5 minutes and complete. They had some really long adventure games during that time period. So,
well, I would argue that this is when the games on the game consoles changed to a more mature audience, if you will. I mean, thanks to the PlayStation, I would say.
Ooh. That's the first console. Oh, I lied. I had the Sega Genesis or Dreamcast or whatever the hell it was called. I was going
to jump out the window if you said the PlayStation was your first console.
No, it was Sega. I don't remember which Sega one. It was the one with the cartridges. It was black, and the cartridge you inserted on the top, and it always overheated, and you had to blow on them. Yeah,
that was the Sega.
Yeah, that's what I had. I played crap loads of Sonic.
Nice. I loved Sonic.
So good.
I played a ton of that game. And a ton of that system.
That's how I overheated it. I played it for hours.
I did that to the Game Gear. Do you remember the Game Gear?
No, what's that?
So inside of this 5th generation of consoles is when we saw the 2nd generation, I'll say, of handheld game consoles.
Yeah, the good stuff.
So the stuff before this actually was the Game Boy and the Game Gear.
Yes, I've never seen this, but that's so handheld. Cool. That's so far in its time.
I had one. I blew it up basically because I played a bunch of it and played Sonic a ton on it, of course.
Oh,
but then my cousin and I were playing together. We both had one at his house, and we had both gotten really far, like really spent like an hour and a half or 2 hours like playing through the levels together. And then we had to go somewhere. So we paused our Game Gears and put them down and left, with them plugged in or whatever.
Uh-oh.
So I came back and the screen had just basically died because I left it for like hours. So
nice.
That's a good story.
That's really depressing. It's funny. You were talking about the Game Gear, which looks super awesome. I had to look back and see, when did the first original Game Boy come out?
Yeah, that was 1989, if memory serves. Yeah,
that's disgusting that you knew that.
Well, it's funny that the Game Boy was before the Super Nintendo.
Yes, and how awesome that is.
It is awesome. It's amazing. I think I loved my Game Boy. It was so good. I played a ton of that thing. And what's funny about it is that I played consoles a ton, obviously. If you've ever listened to this podcast, you know that I've played consoles a ton.
Lots. I think we both have for sure.
Yeah, but you play consoles a ton and then you have a handheld system. You can't keep asking your parents for games for both. You can't, you're not going to double dip. So, of course, Game Boy was the ultimate expression of learning to deal with the games that you already owned.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think I had Super Mario Land, and then I had the first Kirby game, Kirby's Dream Land. And then eventually I got the Zelda game, the Link's Awakening.
Yeah.
And that... and I had Pokemon Red.
Heck,
those are the 4 games I had.
The best of them all. Not really, just...
And it also came with Tetris. I forgot about that. So I had five games total. So, and I had the Game Boy for a long time.
The original...
for a very long time.
Are you talking about the original?
The original Fat Boy Game Boy.
Oh, sweet.
Like that big guy.
Big monster. I remember kids bringing it to like preschool, and I thought it was the coolest thing in the world.
Oh my God, Justin, you're killing me with that kind of stuff. I had one for a long time, and I kept it for a long time, and I didn't have any other games. Those were the 5 games for the years that I kept it. So it's funny.
Holy cow.
But I played a ton of that thing. So the 5th generation of consoles, I would say, was a big change to a more mature style type of video game. And so a big change to a more mature style of video game. And that's when the N64 came out.
Yes.
Which a lot of people talk about, including me. A lot of people talk about a lot of games that they played on the N64. I think you've mentioned quite a few of them as well and loved them. But what's funny about it is the N64 sold just shy of 33 million consoles in that span of time. I think it was 1996 to 1997. Which is a lot. 32 million is a high number for that time. Because the next lowest was the Sega Saturn at 9.2 million. Except then you look at the PlayStation, which was 102.4 million. So it just blew everything out of the water.
Gotta love it.
Yeah. So I mean, it's that started the PlayStation roller coaster, and really PlayStation came out and just buried the Sega Saturn. Like Sega was hot and bothered to come out with their disc system because they knew if they had the disc system, they could totally beat Nintendo once and for all. Like that console war had been going on for a very long time. And Nintendo came out with the 64 and eschewed the discs. They went with the cartridges again, which is why Square left them, if you'll remember.
No, I don't.
So the reason that Square made all the Final Fantasy games, which used to be all on Super Nintendo and on Nintendo, and they had a few other games as well. And they were I think they were exclusive to Nintendo at the time.
I don't remember anything being at the time. Yes, because they weren't exclusive because I could have sworn PlayStation had those games. Because PlayStation.
Well, no, wait, I'm getting there. So we're talking about the Nintendo, the NES, the Nintendo Entertainment System, the first one, and the Super Nintendo. So like Square made games for Nintendo. Period.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
But what happened was Nintendo was working on their console, and they scrapped their disc system with Sony because they were working in tangent with Sony on a disc system.
Yes.
And they said, "Never mind. Sorry, we're just doing cartridges." So then they started doing the cartridges, and Square was like, wait a minute, you said you were doing discs. We are developing games that can fit on discs with soundtracks that can only fit on discs. We can't, there's no way for us to fit that in a cartridge.
I'm going to put on that cartridge. Dude, this is 19 whatever, 94, man. It's the CD year.
Well, yeah, the CD was, the reason the CD had come along was because Sony realized that they could use it, and other companies, including Sega, they could use it to fit CD quality music and higher resolution graphics games on this storage. Wow. You know, like previously you had memory based cartridges, but you could only get so much on there and could only produce so many sounds. And not to mention the fact that Nintendo, I'm sorry, I'm going on a rant here.
No. This is good because how do you know? First of all, this is amazing that you know all this stuff because I am just shocked. You're like a wealth of knowledge of all things video juegos.
I lived through it, so that's part of it. And then also, you know, I really get into this stuff, so I read all kinds of magazines at the time.
Yeah, clearly.
So the other problem was that Nintendo has always, with its cartridge systems, as you know, they've never had third-party cartridges, with a couple of exceptions, and we can talk about that.
Like the Rumble, like later on, like the Rumble pack and things. Well, no,
I just mean the games. Okay. So the games themselves, you have to license the or not license, but you have to buy Nintendo's cartridges and then load your games onto their cartridges and then sell them. And they don't allow third-party cartridges on their consoles, with, again, a few exceptions way back.
Yeah.
Which actually are the reason why they stopped doing third-party cartridges. But the point is that you have to then pay Nintendo to use, or to buy these cartridges, rather. So, and the price was pretty steep from what I understand. I don't know what it was, but so Square, that also was like, Square was like, we're not going to pay for your cartridges anymore, especially since, you know, we can't get any third-party ones. And the disc system is the way to go. So they basically gave Nintendo the bird and then went to PlayStation and signed exclusively with PlayStation because PlayStation was like, we will give you everything you want, period. And we will build our system specifically for your games, which was smart of them because, I mean, Square was huge. Yeah. They were huge, yeah. And the Final Fantasy games, I would argue, were some of the most console selling games on the PlayStation.
Oh yeah, they definitely, I mean, if not, they started a whole JRPG thing on the PlayStation that caused all these people to fall in love with that genre, and then for developers to make games for that platform. So yeah, I agree. I mean, one of my favorite games I played was, I think I've said this multiple times, The Legend of Dragoon. I played so many hours.
Oh, that's a good game.
Of that game, and I loved it. And some parts of me want to go back to it, but there was all sorts of like Gran Turismo and things like that it just shocks me. And like when you compare the Nintendo 64 versus PlayStation, I would argue that the PlayStation, yes, it looks better. I mean, do you disagree?
Looks better physically, or like the
graphics?
Game? Yeah, no, it does for sure.
Yeah, but like there was there was a trade-off that you got. And there's one question I have. What the heck is a 64DD? I don't even know what that is. I've never seen that.
That was their disk drive. So they were planning. So, okay, here's what happened. So PlayStation came out in 1994.
Right.
And the Super Nintendo was out before that. And was their sales, they had quite a bit. And let me find it.
Only 91?
Yeah, they came out in 1990 with that thing in Japan and 91 in North America.
This blows my mind.
They sold about 49 million consoles for the Super Nintendo. And that was the console to beat. And then, again, PlayStation came out and just smashed it at 102 million.
That's a lot.
So the PlayStation came out in 94, and it was almost the same time as the Saturn, which just sunk the Saturn in a lot of ways. But
I still had one.
Yeah, I did too. I loved it. So Nintendo's console at the time was still the Super Nintendo because they hadn't released the N64 yet. They were working on it, but they hadn't released it. But the PlayStation came out, had that huge success, more so than any console ever built. I mean, that's a huge number compared, like a gigantic gap.
Yeah.
And then 2 years later, after the PlayStation had been released in Japan, the 64 was released. And then the PlayStation didn't really get to North America until 95, but just like the Saturn. But the 64 came out a year later. So for us, it was like the next year the 64 came out.
Yeah, after.
But it was lukewarm because you had a release with Mario 64 was the release game. Mm-hmm. And the other game that came out pretty close was Mario Kart, and I think Pilot Wings was another like launch title. And these are like, they're fun games and they're enjoyable, but they're so colorful and so kid-like. And I feel like the people who grew up with gaming, the people with the Nintendos, the NESs, or the Ataris.
Yeah, they wanted to progress to the PlayStation.
And they were older. They were getting older.
Yeah.
So they were really into the idea of the PlayStation and kind of the Sega Saturn, because Saturn had gone in that direction a little bit. I mean, Sega was always the more edgier, of the two. The console wars early on between Nintendo and Sega, that was the whole point of Sega. That was their whole premise was like, you could go play those kids games, but over here we've got these edgy, fun, crazy games that are more about shooting things and blowing things up. And you look back on them now, they still seem very, fundamental, but at the time they were edgy. And then the PlayStation came out and just smashed that to bits with Twisted Metal, which was this game about driving cars and blowing each other up, and like super dark game. What were the other games that released with it? But I mean, just super dark games, like really violent dark games, and that just really resonated with the people at the time. So
Resident Evil was a couple.
Oh yeah, Resident Evil.
Yeah. It was definitely the case. And I remember growing up playing N64, and then I got a PlayStation, I think relatively within the same time period. And the N64 had plenty of games. Like they started to slowly pull in some of the edgier, the more adult-like games with guns and explosions. I mean, you had the most iconic being like the 007 GoldenEye game.
Oh yeah.
And, but like I really played the N64 for like Smash Brothers and the Mario Party games. That's what it was for. It's more like the fun, friendly, family-friendly games to play with your friends. And then the PlayStation had all the cool games, like the cool kid games. So, but
yeah, I played the N64 for like Zelda.
Yeah,
and I mean, I had a lot of games, and I loved them, but they were Nintendo games. Nintendo games are
its own
generally breed. Kid-oriented first-party titles, like Nintendo makes them.
Yeah, and
those are great. And this is that whole Square deal set the stage for really what happened for the next few years with Nintendo. They were having on the 64 a very, very hard time getting third-party game developers and publishers to sign with the 64.
So do you want to let's progress, because like I think this is where the stage starts to get set, and someone else comes into the play where we have PlayStation, or Sony was introduced in this 5th generation, and you still have Dreamcast, and then you have a Nintendo with the GameCube. You have your PlayStation 2, but then somebody else comes along. And
Who could that be?
That is the Xbox, and that just made it even worse for, I think, Nintendo, because now you have, I mean, the Dreamcast did not do so hot. I think
I loved that console, but
that's the weird. That was the kind of, I remember going to Target, like like Toys R Us, and the section for where Dreamcast was, where you can play it while you're there, was so small and like off in a corner. No one ever touched it, and like I would always go over there and play it because no one would be on it while I waited for, like, my mom was walking around buying something. So anyways, the Xbox was introduced in the 6th generation. So 2001 Xbox is introduced, GameCube is introduced same year, but the PlayStation 2 got ahead of everybody and was released in 2000, at the start of the 2000s. So a new generation, and Nintendo still suffered from now a bigger competitor with huge blockbuster deals with these brand new games. With Halo, I think, was the biggest thing that Xbox really kind of skyrocketed off, and I would argue that Halo is what helped Xbox skyrocket.
Oh, I would agree for sure.
Completely. I mean,
I don't understand it. I never will. But that game is what sold the Xbox 100%.
Yeah, this is where I got into gaming, because I owned a PlayStation 2. I never owned an Xbox, because to me and my parents, like, Xbox, that was where all the rated M games were. That's where all the really, really edgy games were, which is not true, because there was plenty on PlayStation 2. But yeah, like, I just never, I was either I got a PlayStation 2 or an Xbox, and like, I'd go to my friend's house and play Halo as much as I could, but I'd come back home and play my PlayStation 2, and I had plenty of games to play. Call of Duty was, I think, where it really started for me, and for, like, first-person shooters, and Kingdom Hearts, my introduction to the square in universe. Some people think it's not, but yeah, this was my generation for me. This is where I got in.
Some people think that Kingdom Hearts is not Square, or
they don't. It's not a real Square game.
They can. I'm not, like, into those games, but those are real Square games.
Like, for sure.
They put their heart and soul into those games.
There's characters from all the Final Fantasies somehow merged into the game, so of course it's Square.
Yeah, and I think those sold quite a few copies comparable to all their Final Fantasy titles and stuff. So
yeah, for sure.
People can go do some things. I'm not gonna swear on the podcast, I swear. Yeah, so you get this generation, you get the PlayStation 2, and again, Sega was limping along because the Dreamcast was just a failure. It's a complete failure.
Was it like a dumpster fire? A complete dumpster fire.
Yeah. Yep. And Nintendo wasn't really far behind, because the 64 did really well in general, but again, it's a gigantic lead that PlayStation had. So the next generation, like you said, was the Dreamcast, the PlayStation 2, the GameCube, and the Xbox. The Dreamcast sold 9 million. The GameCube sold 21.7 million. Mm-hmm. And then the Xbox sold 24 million.
Which is not that much. Like, to be really think about it, that's not a lot.
No, the 64 sold more than the Xbox for sure.
Yeah, but then, of course, PlayStation 2.
But the PlayStation 2 sold 155 million consoles.
That's so much.
And what's funny about that is when they first released the PlayStation 2, it was a buggy mess. It was so bad. People were complaining left and right about it. And the thing about it is, I think really this did the PlayStation 2 service, was that the internet was not huge at the time. It was not the way it is today with social media. It was very much an AOL-centric, chat room-based internet, and was way more tame. So, yeah, everybody had problems with their PlayStation 2 when they first got it, and then they released like an updated version, because there's no way to update the PlayStation 2 unless you got an internet connection, but that came along later.
Yeah, I don't even know, did the original PlayStation 2 have an Ethernet port?
I think I don't know if the original did. I can't remember
have
how
it
that went.
Behind me in the closet. I'm not about to go get it, but I have my PlayStation 2 in a closet behind me, but I don't think it had an Ethernet cord. I think it had 2 front USB, possibly USB. I don't even remember.
No. You're right. Now my memory is serving me well. Like you had to buy the Ethernet adapter. Remember, like it was like that big box you slapped on the back of the PlayStation.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Yes, I do remember.
And I
that.
did not have one of those. So you're not going to update it. You know,
Yeah.
You have bugs. You have bugs, and so you have a bunch of disappointed people. So they rushed out a new version. But I mean, again, you've got these traditional game companies that are limping along, and Sony just smashing them with their foot, you know, just stomping on them.
Yeah.
And the Xbox came along and had a decent showing with 24 million.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was like, a Microsoft console? Pshaw, no. Yeah. And of course, Halo was the big seller, and I was like, no, thanks.
And it was awesome.
Well, a lot of people loved it, so my opinion is definitely not the majority. But it was really the 7th generation that Microsoft found their ground, because that's when they released the Xbox 360.
The first Xbox I ever owned. And
that thing just blew away their old numbers. I mean, that's when they sold 84.7 million consoles. And at the time, PlayStation 3 sold 85.9. That's pretty close. They're pretty close there. And I remember they were neck and neck for a while, and it kept going back and forth, and it was a whole thing. But what's funny about that is that year, Nintendo blew both of them away with 101.6 million Wiis sold. That's when the Wii came out.
Yeah, which is crazy, because the Wii for sure was not anywhere near as good graphics-wise, or at the time when it first came out, had these big launch titles. It didn't really have a lot of it. It had this wonderful thing called Wii Sports, which I think, to be quite honest, was a good point or a good reason, or a reason why a lot of people bought the Wii, was to play these Wii Sports games. But yeah,
totally,
because I purchased a 360, I think 2 years after it came out, maybe 3. So I was really late to the game, because my first game was Fallout 3, and I bought a refurbished Xbox because, man, I don't remember what age I was, but it was expensive to buy this console.
Well, yeah, you're right. That's a really, really important point. This was the year that, so the original Xbox in the previous generation was expensive, like more so than the other two, if memory serves. I think the PlayStation was like $299. And the GameCube was like $299 or something. But then I think the Xbox was like $400 or something.
Oh, wow. Do you know what crazy? It's crazy. I don't even remember how much it was, because I as a kid, I don't remember what money was like. I don't know what my parents paid for my PlayStation 2.
Well, that's kind of how I was with most of them.
Yeah, but then $300.
Yeah, the 360 was the Xbox was...
No, that PlayStation was 300. Okay. PlayStation 2 was 300, and Xbox was...
Yeah, but the 360 came out, and that was the first time they charged... what was it? Oh my gosh, I got to look this up. I think they charged $500 or $550.
I thought that... Was that really the price? There's no way, because...
Well, at launch, it was incredibly expensive.
I thought the Xbox One was $500.
No, here's how it went. Now I remember. Okay, so the 360, when it launched, was $399, but that was for the base system, which came with no drive, none of the stuff.
Yeah.
So you had to like purchase more stuff if you wanted to use the system, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could buy there were 2 configurations. You could buy like the basic, or you could buy like the complete one, which came with a drive installed, and that was $500.
Wow.
So yeah, when it came out, I was like, no. And that was at the time I started working too, and I was like, there's no way I'm ever gonna buy this console. I had a PlayStation 2, I had an N64, I was playing some PC games, but this is when I wasn't living off my parents anymore. And if you notice that in all the previous generations, I can talk to you about all of the consoles because I had pretty much all of the consoles of each generation that I, grew up with.
Yeah, because you could afford. Yeah, exactly.
Well, because I,
was given
ridiculously so ask for them from my parents, which is terrible of me. Terrible. But then when I moved out on my own, I was like, okay, well, if I'm going to game with a console, which I was still into.
Yeah.
And this is when PC gaming really, I would say, took off. But I said to myself, I would need to choose one single platform to buy into for this generation and to come, because there's no way I can purchase this stuff. So yeah, at the time, I, like you, waited, and I think it was 2 or 3 years after it was out, and I bought the 360. Yeah. And I bought like the upgraded with the, all the stuff in it. So, but that was also when Sony and the 360, or Sony and Microsoft, were fighting hard over the Blu-ray versus the high definition disc system and all that stuff.
Was garbage. That was a whole weird fight battle, and well, obviously Blu-ray won. So
yeah, right.
But yeah, it's funny because I owned a 360, but our parents, or my parents and my family, we used like a coin jar that we kept throwing coins in and spare change and whatnot. Yeah. And after a while, my dad had collected enough, so we were like, "What do you guys want to do with it?" And we said, "Well, the Wii had just come out," and we're like, "Well, all of us want a Wii," and so we bought a Wii for the family, and we played that, I think, more than I played the Xbox for a good couple, like a year or so. And we played the Wii Sports. We played a lot of fun family games, and we played Smash Brothers when it came out. Like, we did a lot of fun stuff, and it's surprising because the Wii was cheaper. It wasn't as good hardware, but the games that were coming out, just no matter what, it clicked, and you could play your old GameCube games on it.
Yeah, that was such a huge part of it.
It had ports for the GameCube controllers at the top. Yeah. Which was awesome.
It was fantastic.
And you can use those games to play Wii games.
I loved my GameCube. I mean, it did not sell well. There were few games, but there were a bunch of GameCube games I loved. And actually, they were scrambling. Nintendo at the time was scrambling to try and get third parties to sign with them. But they didn't really have any success. They kept relying on like the Resident Evil games from Capcom to...
Yeah, that gets old real quick.
Yeah, to really be like their mature side of it. But I loved that my Wii could play the GameCube games. And what the other thing about the Wii was that at the time, both the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360 were expensive. I'm looking it up right now. The PlayStation 3 had two models. One cost $500 and the other cost $600.
Yeah,
and then the 360, like we said before, was $300 and $400.
That's right, because I remember the battle between who was cheaper. The Xbox won that battle because it was cheaper, and I think that's why it did better.
Well, they did about the same.
But barely. Yeah. Like, I mean, we say barely. $3 million is quite a lot, but... Yeah.
No, I mean, but that's in game console numbers. That's a lot, or not a lot.
Yeah.
But the Wii came out, and it was $250, and... that was a huge selling point for a lot of people. It came with
two controllers, too. One or two? I don't remember.
I think it came with one Wiimote.
And those were not that expensive either, compared to the 50 or 60 ridiculous dollars you'd be paying for a controller, wireless, for Xbox and PlayStation.
It's...
silly expensive.
It was expensive. And the Wii sold a lot, as we just said. And so Nintendo had like a cash cow on its hands. It hadn't done it well in consoles in a long time, and the Wii sold more than the other two by a decent margin. And they were addressing a whole new market. They were addressing, like you said, they were addressing a whole like family market in a way that they hadn't before. Like the Wii games were fun to play together as a family in a way that gaming hadn't done. You have all the old Nintendo consoles. Yeah, you have all the other consoles where you can sit down and play split screen and like each person has a controller. But this was like standing up and playing tennis or standing up and bowling. I mean, these were like family room activities that the Wii facilitated. And that had never been seen before. And they really tapped into something that they kind of lost the next generation. But so from there, you have the PlayStation 4, you have the Xbox One, and that's the current gen.
Right.
You have the Wii U.
Well, yeah.
Which falls into that, which was Nintendo's system after the Wii. I don't know what they were thinking. I still don't understand.
It was like a portable, their first attempt at a portable Nintendo device that was more advanced than their 3DS. And I don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah, I don't know what they were thinking, because the Wii U didn't have any of the charm of the Wii. It didn't have any of the motion stuff from the Wii unless you bought Wii peripherals. And you had this big controller that had a screen built into it, so you could play Wii U games, sitting away from the Wii U, the console itself, and not using the TV, which was a cool idea in some ways, but it felt very gimmicky and didn't feel like a fully formed idea. And the Wii U did not sell well. It was 13 million.
Yeah.
And compared to PlayStation 4's 81 from 2013 on, and the Xbox One is somewhere in the 30 million range. That's weird.
So they stopped posting, I guess. I'm reading into it. They stopped posting sales figures after 2013. After like the first year, they just stopped posting sales. And so I think after a while, people started speculating how many they had sold. And at the end, just recently this year, some research firm estimates only 39.1 million units were sold by the end of March of 2018. That's nuts. That's so small.
EA had done a whole study themselves, and it was similar numbers. It was like 35 million or something. So
something happened in this time period where PlayStation they learned from their mistake, I think, from the last generation, and they capitalized on it, and
they did
blew Xbox out of the water. And as an Xbox fan, I didn't want to say PlayStation was better. I didn't want to be like, oh yeah, PlayStation did a better job, Sony was smarter this time around, and they were. And it just blows my mind, because if you look at the Nintendo Switch, which just released last year, March, it's already at almost 20 million as of June this year. That's just 1 year, and it's almost going to surpass the Xbox One, which was released in 2013. So,
yeah, the Switch is on track to sell 30 million.
Oh yeah,
in
for
its
sure.
first year.
Easy.
Yeah.
Just wait till more big ticket games come out. Smash Brother, I'm sure this holiday season totally increased the sales for the Switch for sure, 100%. But I mean, the 8th generation is particularly interesting too, is because each generation or each company besides Nintendo's Wii U, they came out with like a pro version of their model, which was like they did a mid
generation
mid-generation update where they bumped up the graphics capabilities and the hardware so that you can play these more advanced games. But I really don't know if that helped at all. Unfortunately, what we're looking at now, I think we're both looking at the same article / Wikipedia. Nothing is showing up for the pros. I don't see anything about that.
Yeah.
And that just makes me wonder, like, we're in this point now where are we going to even have a new generation where it's like an Xbox, I don't know the new name for it, or are we just going to do these incremental updates to it and just call it the Xbox One or the Xbox or the PlayStation and just update it every 2 years with new internals? I mean, it's interesting. The Switch clearly made way in just a year with a device that's clearly not as advanced as the pro devices that are out now.
No, for sure.
But still is selling. Like Nintendo found the right niche or the right market, the right approach to selling their device, and they're going to destroy. I have a feeling they're going to literally start a new focus on the gaming console because of the portability of playing hot ticket items or hot ticket games like Breath of the Wild, Zelda Breath of the Wild, and taking that with you everywhere. I think we're going to start feeling that portability shift again. What do you think?
I don't think so. I think that Nintendo is having great success with the Switch and will continue to do so if they can keep the releases up and going.
Yeah.
And then I think they have a great strategy with doing a lot of the indie games because they're still having trouble signing third parties, like the third parties that sign on with PlayStation and
they're
with
slowly
Xbox.
coming in. Yeah.
The reason for that is that the tools needed to port your game to the Switch are way more complicated from what I've read than the PlayStation. Actually, the PlayStation's tools and the way the PlayStation is set up, they learned from the PlayStation 3's mistakes, and their tools and their hardware, basically all they did was decide to put a gigantic amount of memory into the PlayStation so that developers could just go hog wild and not have to worry about it. Because I don't know if you remember this, but the PlayStation 3, the reason it was $500 and $600 was because they built a whole new architecture and crazy chipset that nobody had ever seen before just for the PlayStation 3, which was going to be this like huge cash cow for games and like this huge like differentiator, which in the long run it ended up being extremely complicated to develop for, from what I understand.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And so while they had good success with the PlayStation 3, developers were not super excited about it, and it was a really complicated process. They took that all away with the 4. They built a system that would use standard processors, just jammed a bunch of tons and tons of memory into it, and then made a tool set that was easy to use. And that's been their success right now. And the Switch is kind of in a similar situation as the PlayStation 3. It's not easy to port your games to it. And that's because it's really a different set of hardware. It's like a whole different thing than all the other systems, which is a good thing. I think it's a really neat, innovative idea. There's 2 hurdles I see for Nintendo. One is getting the third parties to sign, because that stuff really drives a lot of what people will buy, because again, these consoles are expensive, and buying 2 or 3 is not as common, I would say, these days. I mean, you've got a few third parties that have been porting their games to the Switch, but you need a lot more. And the other hurdle is for them to decide what they're doing, what their vision is. They have the 3DS, and that's a huge... I mean, that thing has sold a lot of consoles. Yeah. The 3DS is a smash success. And yet, is it eating from the same table as the Switch or vice versa? Because the Switch is technically a handheld gaming system.
Yeah, it's a portable handheld gaming system. And I think, yes, it pulls from the same clientele. It's the same, if not very similar to the people who want to play their 3DS and want to play the old GameCube games that are being ported to the 3DS, or at least and the ability to play them. And it's almost like this confusion of, yes, what Nintendo Switch, what is it supposed to be? Is it supposed to be a console game, or is it really just supposed to be a handheld game? I can tell you right now, I play it. I thought I would never do this, but I play it less on the TV now than I do portable, like walking and playing it with the Joy-Cons and in the handheld configuration. Because I mean, who wouldn't want to play laying in bed Zelda without having to worry about waking people up?
Yeah.
So it's just interesting. And now we're at this state where I think they kind of, Xbox or Microsoft and Sony, they created the little mid-cycle update, and I think now we're due for a full-fledged update. Maybe, I don't know what their intentions are. I've been out of it since really that, and I really haven't been paying attention, so I don't know what our next generation of video game kids are going to be playing in the next couple of years.
Well, what's interesting about the PlayStation 3, Xbox 360 set of time where they were neck and neck and fighting for it was that was the first time they did like console updates. In other words, they had hardware that was newer and sleeker and better. They released newer versions of the consoles that were better. So that was the first step towards that like mid-generation update to the hardware. And because of that generation lasted like 10 years. Mm-hmm. And that was a huge, huge plus for all of them, because the longer you can keep that console still selling and selling the games for it, the better off you are. You're making lots of money then.
Yeah. And I owned the Xbox, I think it was Elite, Xbox 360 Elite or whatever, the Slim or whatever it was. Because my old Xbox ended up frying itself after being 7 years old or whatever it was.
Yeah.
So,
I went through 2 of them. The regular originals, I went through 2 of those, and then I got the Elite. And so now we have this generation where now we've got the mid-generation update on the console. To answer your far back previous question, we went back 9 steps. I think that we will have a next generation. I think that there's too much at stake, and it's too helpful to have a big release event and say, here's the new hardware and this is what it can do, and just show it off. And so I think we'll see a PlayStation 5. I think we'll see, something from Nintendo. The question I think will become, will we see something from Microsoft? Because this generation, they're not doing well.
Yeah.
And just real quick, I want to add the reason for that is they took that focus off of gaming. They focused the 360 at the end.
Station.
Yeah, the 360 at the end, they were really pushing for it to become your home media device. And the Xbox One really, really moved forward on that. It was intended to be your everything for your TV device. And in more ways than even gaming, they were really focusing on the DVR aspects, the TV channels, the movies you could watch, the Xbox Connect stuff you could do with it. And that really hurt them. And PlayStation, on the other hand, from the PlayStation 3 era, had realized that they just need to make really good games with really good game companies and focus on that, and they would sell consoles. And that has done well for them. So that's where they're at.
Xbox on. Yeah. Because I remember the conference at E3 when they were displaying the Xbox One, and I was fascinated with the ability to plug in your TV to the box and have it act as a receiver almost, and you're passing through and being able to have these menus come up while you're watching your TV show. You can have your Xbox friends jump in and you can talk while watching the show. So yeah, they really focused on, or at least I think they tried to broaden their horizon or broaden their user group so that they had more people coming to the Xbox. And as interesting as I think that was, it definitely backfired, because at the point when they started doing the mid-cycle updates, they removed the Kinect and completely, and they focused on trying to promote that here's the new hardware for your better gaming, with a new 4K gaming with the new titles that are coming out. So they definitely backtracked too late, I think, and here we are. PlayStation 4 is destroying, and still, I guess, is selling. You just bought one, or got one, was it last year? Or is it 2 years ago?
2 years ago.
Oh, wow. That's been that long.
Yeah.
So
I love mine. I play a lot of it, and I have a PC full of hundreds of games, literally hundreds of games. And somehow, when I play video games, I'm usually sitting on the couch with my PlayStation 4 controller, playing on my PlayStation 4. So I don't know. I really like it. They did a lot of really good things with it. So, yeah.
Cool. I think that's enough video game talk for today.
Yeah, I mean, we could keep going for another 2-3 hours, I'm sure.
Yeah, and maybe we might have to at one point, just to start something off with a video game podcast, because at this point, we've done enough of these. At this point, really, we have.
Yeah.
And you have so much knowledge about... I never knew half the way you knew with the consoles, so... It's
ridiculous. I probably shouldn't know as much as I do. I mean, they're really just toys.
We love you for it.
Aw.
All right, let's go to the rant part.
Okay.
And I saw you have your rant is exclamation, or is all in caps, and it says snow. So I'm assuming it's about snow.
Yeah, we got it early in November, as I'm sure a lot of people know. And that sucks. And I'm really upset about it. Really. I mean, you get snow in November sometimes, of course. But it just felt really early this year. Like, I just was not prepared for it. And now it's all melted. And all the things that I wanted to do before the snow came are ruined. Like, I can't really do them now that the snow already came. and ruined all the things I was going to try to do before the snow came. So I didn't plan very well, and that's my fault. But I guess maybe I should have done it in, September, October, who knows. But we had snow in November, and it was brutal. So I'm tired of you, snow, even though you're coming with more, but I'm tired of you already. And it's only been one time.
What is it like? Snow showers bring. Oh wait, it's still November, or it's just December now. So it's more snow showers bring more snow showers. I think that's the phrase in December.
Yeah, and somehow I haven't gotten around to actually winterizing my stupid lawnmower. I have the stuff to winterize it, the stabilizer, but I haven't gotten around to doing it like an idiot.
The best way to winterize a lawnmower is to not have one. So that's where I'm at right now. So
did you get rid of your lawnmower?
The lawnmower I had stopped working. It was a very I bought it from somebody for very cheap, and it stopped working.
Wow.
Basically, just I didn't want to put the effort in fixing it because it was a good first lawnmower. It's a push lawnmower, but I have to buy one this spring. So,
well, yeah, that is the easy way to.
Did not have one. Don't worry. Next thing you know, I'll be talking about how to winterize a riding lawnmower. So
nice.
I'm just kidding. I can't do that.
I'm sure.
Not yet.
You should.
No, I would be succumbing to being lazy, I think. To me, I don't have a big enough yard. I'm still young. I'm still able to push the lawnmower, so I'll just continue to do so.
Okay.
But I kind of have, not really similar to snow, but something that I've been having problems with and always have had problems with is why it's so dang expensive to park in a city. We just went to the lovely Windy City past weekend, to go visit some places, and the first place we went to, it was $20 to get in to park, which is not the end of the world because it was $20 for the entire day. It's actually not that bad for the city. So we went there and we're like, okay, we're done. Well, let's go somewhere else. Some of us would Uber, but unfortunately the people I was with don't like Ubering, so I couldn't have done that. So we went to go to where we wanted to go, and there was parking there too. And there's parking on the streets and then parking on the side, but it's a very busy street. So I said, what about the parking garage right there? Well, we drove into the parking garage, and it says 0 to 2 hours, $27. I immediately said, oh yeah, we're backing up. And we backed up out of there and drove away because I'm not paying $27 to spend 20 minutes to go look at something.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous, and I get it. It's for convenience, and everything's more expensive in the city. But my gosh, why are you so expensive? Why? This is why people Uber, and this is why I like Uber, because I still would spend less getting to several places by paying for $5 to get to and from areas. So
people in cities, rather parking in cities, usually is expensive, but Chicago really takes it to a whole new level.
Yes.
It is really bad. And the street parking, I don't even remember what law or what. Oh, they went to some third party, right? That administrates the street parking. It's no longer the city.
Yeah, something like that. And then there's a no parking ban going on.
Yeah, well, that's been going on for years.
So you can't park in like major streets or anywhere because of the snow. So that just makes it even harder for people to find parking because it pushes them to go to these parking garages that are $27 or higher for 2 hours.
Yeah, no, that's bad.
It was $45 for the whole day, by the way.
That's insane.
For 24 hours, it was $45.
That is ridiculous.
It's stupid. But anyways, end of rant. Thank you all for listening to our 27th episode. You can follow the show on Twitter at DigitalDividePC or send us feedback by sending an email to askdigitaldivide@gmail.com. You can check all this information out at our website at www.digitaldividepodcast.com. And additionally, if you want to follow our personal accounts, I'm on Twitter at JustinFry121. And Josh, where can people find you?
On Twitter, you can find me at jcharletto. That's my first initial last name spelled JCIARLETTO. Or you can email me at josh@charletto.com.
If you liked this episode or any of our other episodes, give us a review on iTunes or anywhere podcasts can be heard. And until next time, take care.
Bye.